Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today at the Spanish Written Exam webinar. Before we get started, we'd like to just introduce you to the software you're using today to view this webinar. On the left-hand side, you have the hand icon. You can click on that to raise your hand if you have a question, although it's probably better for us if you ask your question directly within this questions box below. Hola and bienvenidos a Español. My name is Zach. I'm one of two Spanish teachers here at Penn Foster. With us here today is my colleague Dan, who will answer any and all of your questions if you should have any. You have a variety of ways to get in contact with both of us throughout your Spanish course. First is by phone at 1-888-427-1000. You want to select option 5 to speak with a member of the Education Department, and we're here Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Email and chat options are available through the help and support page of your student portal. If you have a quick question, you can text the word learn to 39033. You can definitely set up a one-on-one appointment if you have more detailed questions, and there are a ton of resources located on our academic resource page, so feel free to check that out. So on today's objectives, we are going to describe each of the Spanish written exams, locate where to find project instructions and audio selections within your portal. Also describe how to upload assignments, identify reasons for a returned assignment, explain everything about plagiarism in your Spanish course, and finally we'll give you some tips for success. So without further ado, let's get started with Spanish written exams. First thing to know is that there are 5 written exams in your Spanish course. Exams 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Each exam is a little bit different in what it requires you to do. And you can see from this chart that there are exam numbers which correspond to the exam that you're working on. So in case you were to see these numbers come up, you'll be able to match them with the appropriate exam. To start with exam number 4, it is a 3-part exam. Part 1 is error detection. Here you will be given a sentence in Spanish and also a sentence in English. There will be one error in each of the Spanish sentences. So what you want to do is correct that error and rewrite the sentence correctly in Spanish. So in the example we give you here, él están jugando al béisbol, we see that él is a singular subject, which means he. However, the verb is plural, están. So we must change the plural verb to singular, están to está, to make it agree with the subject of the sentence. In the next part is math completion. You'll just solve the math problem that we give you and write your answer in Spanish word format. So our example, uno times uno. Uno is 1 in Spanish. 1 times 1, we know that answer is 1. And your answer would be uno once again. And then the last section of this exam is reading comprehension. You're going to be reading through a story in Spanish and answering a couple comprehension questions in English. All right, the next exam, number 6, is a 4-part exam. Part 1 is matching, so there will be images and you're matching those images with commands. Part 2 and Part 3 are pretty similar. They deal with verb conjugation. So first in Part 2, we will give you an irregular verb in the infinitive form, which is the to version of the verb, and you'll want to conjugate those verbs in present tense. So an example, the verb salir means to leave in Spanish. We then give you the pronouns, ellos and ellas. We know that is the third person plural. So essentially what we're trying to say is they leave in Spanish, so that answer salen. As I mentioned, part 3 is pretty similar to part 2, although you're only dealing with 2 different verbs, the verbs which mean to know. In Spanish, saber, conocer. Additionally, in this section, verbs can be conjugated in the imperfect tense. So important that you understand the difference between these two tenses when you're completing this section. For reference, saber is used if you know something for a fact or something certain, whereas conocer is if you know a person or you're acquainted with or familiar with something. So in our examples here, Anna knows many things. She knows those for certain. We're going to use saber. So our answer, Anna, sabe. If it's in the imperfect, Anna knew many things. Your answer becomes sabia. Over on the right-hand column, Anna knows Juan. That's more of an acquaintance or a familiarity. So you'll be using conocer. In present tense, conoce, and in the imperfect tense, conocía. And finally, part 4 is reading comprehension once again. This time, though, instead of answering the questions in English, you'll be answering true or false. Now, anytime you do have a false answer, to receive full credit, you do want to explain why it's false. All right, the next exam, number 8, is also a 4-part exam. Parts 1 and 2, you are translating sentences from English to Spanish. So as you can see by our example, he runs to the grandma's house. En español, él corre a la casa de la abuelita. In part 3, you're doing just the opposite. You'll be translating sentences from Spanish to English. Pon tu lápiz aquí in English means put your pencil here. Now, in part 4, you have one of two options. If you've enrolled earlier into the Spanish course, you will be completing an audio section. This will be the first audio section within your course. You will be given a passage with the fill in the blank section, and what you want to do is fill in the missing words that you hear. For right now, if you want to just take down where to find the audio, it's located on tape 4L, listening comprehension, side A, from around 2 minutes and 30 seconds, lasting about a minute up to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And it will start with the two words en la. Now, if you've enrolled more recently into our program, there is an alternate way of how to complete part 4. You'll just be following the specific directions on your exam. There will be questions on translation, sentence formation, and others. Now, you will only be completing one assignment for part 4, so just important that you read the directions that are on your exam itself. So we're going to pause for a brief moment. If you do have any questions, please feel free to send those in to Dan at this time. For our next exam, number 10, this is a 3-part exam. In part 1, you have translation sentences again, English to Spanish. So how many cars does he have? En español, ¿cuántos autos tiene él? Part 2 is translation, although this time it's just a single word. You'll be writing the English for the underlined words in a passage. So an example, mucho, this means a lot or much in English. Part 3 is listening comprehension. This will apply to everybody. You will be listening to 2 Spanish poems and writing them also in Spanish. Titles of these two poems are No sé qué te diera, I don't know what I would give you, and Veo la luna, I see the moon. These two poems can also be found on tape 4L, Listening Comprehension, side A, from 9 to 10 minutes. And finally, exam number 12. This is a two-part assignment. Part 1 is translation sentences, English to Spanish. So we give you one more example. You could take a look at that. And then in part 2, it's listening comprehension once again. Here you will be listening to a story in Spanish and writing an English summary of 10 to 20 sentences in your own words. First, there is a choice of which story you'd like to listen to. First option is on tape 4L, side B, from 3.5 minutes up to 15. The story called Papá siempre tiene la razón, Father always has a reason, or Father is always right. And the alternate option, tape 4L, side A, from 13 to 21 minutes. This story titled Circo, an old Ukrainian tale. Please note you do just need to do one of these stories. It's not that you'll earn extra credit by doing both, so please make sure to follow the directions. It's important that you are summarizing this section, so you don't want to necessarily write a word-by-word translation, and it definitely needs to be in your own words. We are familiar with there may be adaptations of these stories or different versions that exist, and we are often able to detect when students use these alternate adaptations. So important that, if you don't get every detail of the story, it's fine. It's very important, though, that you do write it in your own words. Before moving into the next section, we'll take another brief pause. If you do have any questions on those 5 written assignments, please be sure to send those questions in at this time. In the next section of this webinar, we are going to talk about where to find project instructions and audio selections within your portal. We'll start with our first screenshot here. Now, this is for students that have enrolled earlier into our high school program. The layout of Student Portal has changed from time to time, so important to see some of the differences here. First, here we're working on Exam 8 in Spanish, and you see the study unit. The study unit is where all of your reading material, the content for the lesson will be. You then have a corresponding audio tape for each study unit, and that's going to be the first block. So with Exam 8 Spanish, this corresponds to tape 4, side B. Now you also see that there's the tape 4L, the listening comprehension, side A and side B. These will be the audio for your exam specifically. So very important that you see the difference between, say, tape 4 and tape 4L. If you didn't get a chance to write down all of the time markers I gave you earlier, you can also check out this supplement at the bottom of your course, clarification on audio sections. Just open that up and you'll see all those time markers once again. So to find project instructions, these are going to be found directly in the study materials. So toward the end of each of the study units, you will find a page that looks very similar to this. It'll give you information about academic integrity, about plagiarism, and then it will start in on the exam. Now, if you've enrolled more recently into our high school program, you see that things have changed a little bit. It's all of the same material, just organized in a different way. So we're still working here on lesson 8. And in this case, we have assignments. So the first assignment would be your study unit. This is where, again, all of the study material will be. You have the corresponding audio tape for the study unit, lesson audio. Next up, you have pictograph flashcards. This will help you out with your vocab. And then the final 3 assignments here really give you information about the exam itself. So project instructions is where you can find directions. And then tape 4L listening comprehension. If any of the exams have that audio section, you can find those there. In this case, the project instructions, if you click on that assignment, it will always give you a reminder about where to find the audio for an exam that has it, right at the top of the page. It will give you the steps to upload your assignment, and then at the very bottom, you'll see this click to view project instructions, and that's where you'll find the questions. So to make it easier on you, we hope, Dan and I have recently put together the audio on specific links that you can click on. So if you're having trouble playing the audio whatsoever, if you're having technical problems, give this link a try. As long as you click on it, it will launch the specific audio for the exam you're working on. So as you can see here, it's located right within the exam directions. You can click on the link instead of using the audio buttons. Either way is fine though. All right, next we're going to talk about a couple of different ways of how to submit your written assignment or other non-electronic submission options. We do have a variety of ways to make it convenient depending on your needs. So generally, with other written exams here at Penn Foster as well, you may type your responses on a word processor like Microsoft Word, Google Docs, WordPad, and others. Next, very important that you save the file to your device as one of these file types or file extensions. The first one, RTF, rich text format, primarily used with WordPad or Google Docs. And the DOC or DOCX format, standing for document, primarily used for Microsoft Word. After you have saved your file, just follow the uploading instructions found in the exam instructions. If you have trouble saving your document or submitting it online, you can fax or mail your exam to us. Our fax number is now listed on your screen, 570-961-4038. Do make sure you have your name, your student ID number, as well as attention Spanish, so that your exam can be processed correctly. And then similarly by mail, our mailing address now is listed, Penn Foster, again, attention Spanish, 925 Oak Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18515. Next, to check on the status of your exam, whether it was received, returned, or graded, you would first consult the grades page on your student portal. Navigate to the course you're working on, in this case Spanish, and you'll have one of these options. The first one, returned, means your assignment was ungraded, it was returned to you for not meeting requirements or a technical issue. The second option is obviously a numerical grade. And the third option is received. So typically a written assignment can take about 5 to 7 business days for evaluation. Many times we are able to get them done sooner, but that is the general turnaround time. So going a little bit further, if your exam happens to be returned, here are a couple of the top reasons we've seen for Spanish specifically. If you don't follow directions for a section, if you write something in English when it needs to be written in Spanish, if you fail to complete all the parts of the exams, if you only do 2 out of 3 parts, for example. With the later exams with audio, if you do complete the wrong audio selection for the exam you're working on, or if you submit the wrong exam, wrong file, that kind of thing. It's important that you look at the instructor feedback file for the reason for your specific return. We do grade all of the exams individually. We put together a lot of useful feedback for you to review. So even if your exam was graded, it's still good to go through the instructor feedback file to learn from your mistakes and to improve for the future. So to find the instructor feedback file, you just navigate to the lesson you're working on, in this case, Exam 4 Spanish. Just click on the View Project. It may also be called View Feedback link to the side. And the second box will come up. You can either download your project that you submitted to us for grading, or the second one being the instructor feedback file. So as I mentioned, very important that you look through instructor feedback, even if you got, say, a 95 on the assignment and you want to see where you lost those 5 points. If your exam happens to be plagiarized, it will give you all the policies about plagiarism in that instructor feedback file. Or if your assignment was returned, it'll tell you what was missing, how to correct the returns so that it can be graded the next time. So next we're going to talk a little bit about plagiarism and what this entails. So first, plagiarism is very important to remember with all courses here at Penn Foster. We do maintain academic integrity. We must ensure that all students are conducting themselves in the appropriate fashion. So if you do use a language translator, Google Translate is probably the most popular, or you submit any answers obtained online. This will be identified and cause your assignment unacceptable for a final grade. So we've seen students use Google Translate. There's a site called Brainly, Just Answer, and others. We are very familiar with these sites, so very important that you refrain from using them. So if we find plagiarism in your exam, on the original submission, on the first take, your exam will receive the 1% grade, and it will require you to complete the retake exam in your own words. Now, if the retake exam is plagiarized, same exam, your exam will get another 1% grade, and now you'll be required to complete a paper exam by mail. And then finally, if this paper exam is plagiarized, further disciplinary action will be taken up to and including termination from Penn Foster altogether. Please note, again, we do have to ensure academic integrity is being met. Do need to make sure all students are being ethical with the work they submit. So if you do have any doubts about what can be considered plagiarism, or any questions on the matter, please get in contact with Dan or myself. So generally speaking, how can you avoid plagiarism in this course? The first one is pretty straightforward and pretty obvious, but to use your own words on the written exams. It's definitely far better to submit something that may not include every detail or something that's incorrect than to search online for the information and use it in your writing. Everything that you will need to know for the exams can be found in your study material, so you don't want to consult any online sources. Rather, refer to your study material from Penn Foster only. So as we wrap up for today, we definitely want to give you some tips for success. So we see you do well. A lot of students have Spanish as their last elective, so it's often a moment of excitement as they're ready to finish up the program. So number one, please take your time. This elective is one of our longest at Penn Foster with 5 written assignments. It definitely has some challenges along the way. So learning a second language in general is difficult, and it does take thorough time and preparation, especially as someone that's doing it on their own. Please do not search the internet. It does result in more work for you and disciplinary action, again, with multiple attempts at plagiarism. So even though you're alone, you're really not. You definitely can ask any questions throughout your course to Dan or myself. We are here. We want you to succeed in your Spanish course. So please feel free, even if you think it's a pretty small question, please feel free to contact us and we'll help you out. As we finish up for today, we will take any of your last preguntas, any questions. You may ask those now in the webinar question area. Again, our contact options are listed on your screen: phone, email, chat, text, appointment scheduling, and of course the academic resources page. We both wish you buena suerte en español, good luck in Spanish. Thank you for joining us today and for your attention, and we hope you have a great day.